What's something totally normal you saw while driving that suddenly got really weird? I was driving through a quiet suburban neighborhood when I saw a man walking his dog. Totally normal. But as I passed, I realized the dog wasn't walking. It was just standing perfectly still, like a statue. The leash was taut, but the man didn't seem to notice. I looked in my rearview mirror and saw that they were both frozen in place, neither moving. I blinked, looked again, and they were gone. On a road trip, I saw a woman pushing a baby stroller across a crosswalk. Nothing unusual, until I got closer and saw that the stroller was completely empty, not even a blanket, just a large rock, like the kind you'd find in a garden. She looked up at me, smiled, and kept pushing it like everything was fine. Driving through a wooded stretch of highway at dusk, I saw a deer standing at the edge of the road. I slowed down, waiting for it to cross, but it never moved. As I passed, I realized it wasn't breathing, just standing perfectly still with its mouth slightly open. In the rearview mirror, it was gone. There was no sound, no movement, just nothing. One night while driving home from work, I passed a person riding a bike in the opposite lane, wearing a full wedding dress. I assumed it was some kind of prank or bachelor party thing. 10 minutes later, I passed them again. Same direction, same bike, same dress. I don't know how they got ahead of me. I was going 60. I was once stopped at a red light when a guy pulled up next to me in a truck with a massive pumpkin in the passenger seat. Like, seat belted in and everything. I laughed, and he smiled. Then the pumpkin slowly turned to face me. I thought I was seeing things, but the guy just nodded like it was completely normal. What's your most unforgettable moment in a traffic jam? I was stuck on the highway for 2 hours after an accident shut everything down. People were getting out of their cars, stretching, pacing. Then one guy pulled a folding table out of his trunk and started a card game with his family right there in the breakdown lane. Within 15 minutes, 3 other cars had joined, and there was a full-on Uno tournament happening on the side of the road. During a standstill on the interstate, I saw someone climb onto the roof of their car with a Bluetooth speaker and start playing slow jazz. He sat there drinking a soda like he was sunbathing at the beach. People started clapping from other cars. The guy in front of me got out and asked him for the playlist. It turned into the calmest traffic jam I've ever experienced. I was once gridlocked downtown during a holiday parade. No one was moving, and I was boxed in completely. After a few minutes, someone in a nearby SUV rolled down their window and offered cookies to the cars next to them. Then a violinist climbed out of another car and started playing Christmas music. People got out and started singing. It was like a hostage situation turned musical. There was a time I was stuck in a traffic jam caused by a runaway cow. Just one. It had escaped from a livestock trailer and was trotting down the highway, mooing proudly while 5 police cruisers slowly followed behind like it was the most dignified parade in the world. The cow turned down an off-ramp like it knew exactly where it was going. One time traffic came to a complete stop for over an hour. People started getting creative. A guy 3 cars ahead of me got out and started juggling oranges. Someone behind me blasted dance music and a conga line actually formed. It snaked through the gridlock like a bizarre tailgate party. When traffic finally started moving again, everyone honked in rhythm like it was part of a celebration. Have you ever picked up a hitchhiker, or been one? And what happened next? I picked up a guy during a cross-country trip who had a sign that just said please. He didn't say much, just asked for a ride to the next town. A few minutes in, he pulled out a harmonica and started playing softly. It was actually kind of peaceful. When I dropped him off, he said, "Thank you for not asking about the shoes." I didn't look at his shoes the entire ride. I still wonder what was wrong with them. I once hitchhiked with a trucker who had a life-sized cardboard cutout of Mr. T strapped in the passenger seat. He said it helped him stay awake on long hauls. Every time he made a sharp turn, he'd yell, "Hold on, T," like they were real buddies. Honestly, he was one of the safest and kindest drivers I've ever met. A friend and I picked up a woman on the side of a rural road who was wearing a prom dress and carrying a bouquet of plastic flowers. She said she was heading to the reception. It was 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. We dropped her off at a diner 2 towns over. She smiled, handed us each a single flower, and said, "The bride thanks you." I still have that flower. I was hitchhiking in my 20s and got picked up by a guy in a beat-up van. Inside, it looked like a traveling greenhouse. Plants everywhere, hanging from the ceiling, vines across the dashboard. He said he lived in the van and grew herbs for clarity. We talked about music and philosophy for an hour. He gave me a sprig of mint when I got out. Best smelling ride I've ever had. I once picked up a guy who asked if I believed in aliens before even introducing himself. Then he handed me a stack of folded up papers and said, "This is what they don't want you to know." The entire ride he stared out the window and hummed. The papers were hand-drawn star maps and notes written in all caps. I dropped him off near a rest stop. He waved at the sky as I drove away. What's the worst case of road rage you've ever witnessed or experienced? I was driving on the freeway when a guy cut me off, slammed on his brakes, and then sped off again. Annoying, but I let it go. 2 miles later, we're at a red light, and he jumps out of his car, walks to my window, and throws a half-eaten sandwich at my windshield. No words. Just pure sandwich-based vengeance. Then he calmly got back in his car and drove off like nothing happened. While stuck in traffic, I watched two drivers screaming at each other across a center divider. One of them threw an entire drink over their roof to hit the other guy's windshield. The other person responded by getting out of their car and pulling the wiper blades off in a single motion, like some kind of highway gremlin. They just tossed them into the ditch and walked back to their car in total silence. I once saw a man stop his truck in the middle of the road, get out, and slap the hood of the car behind him for honking. Not punch it, slap it. Open palm. Full contact, like he was disciplining a misbehaving appliance. Then he walked back to his truck and kept driving like he hadn't just physically assaulted a Toyota Corolla. During rush hour in LA, I witnessed two cars blocking 3 lanes because both drivers got out and were yelling face to face. A third driver pulled up, honked, and one of the original two punched his hood, hard. The third driver just got out, took a photo of the scene, and drove off the shoulder to escape the madness. I later saw the photo on Twitter. One time, I merged a little too close in front of someone. They tailed me for nearly 10 minutes, then finally sped ahead and threw a full bag of McDonald's trash out their window, directly onto my windshield. It exploded like a fast food bomb. I had ketchup running down the glass for miles. Drivers, what's the most bizarre thing you've ever seen on the road? I was on the highway heading home late at night when I saw a fully inflated bounce house in the middle lane. No truck, no kids, no explanation, just a bounce house lit by headlights, slowly deflating like it was giving up on life. Cars were swerving around it like it was totally normal. I still don't know how it got there. While driving through a rural stretch of road in Iowa, I saw a man jogging on the shoulder wearing a full bear costume. Not a mascot suit. A realistic-looking bear outfit, complete with fur and claws. He was holding a milk jug and waving at passing cars. No sign, no film crew. Just bear guy, doing cardio. I was once stuck behind a car with a mattress strapped to the roof. Not unusual, until the driver stuck a whole arm out the window and started slapping the mattress every few seconds like he was calming it down. After a mile or so, I noticed the mattress was tied down with Christmas lights. Not ropes, not cords, Christmas lights. Driving through the city one afternoon, I stopped at a red light and looked over at the car next to me. In the passenger seat was a full mannequin, dressed in a wedding gown, seatbelt on, head turned toward me with lipstick smeared across its mouth. The driver gave me a thumbs up like this was the most normal day of his life. I passed a minivan on the freeway where the back hatch was wide open and a man was sitting in a recliner, inside the van, facing traffic. He was holding a TV remote like he was watching the road for entertainment. He even had a soda in the cup holder armrest. I slowed down just to confirm I wasn't hallucinating. I once saw a guy driving a convertible during a thunderstorm, roof down, getting absolutely soaked, just nodding along to music. He made eye contact with me at a stoplight and mouthed, "Worth it," then peeled out like it was Fast and Furious, wet edition. On a road trip through Arizona, I saw a camel. Not in a zoo, not fenced in. Just a camel walking down the side of the road like it was commuting to work. No tags, no leash, just vibes. I later heard someone had a private exotic pet ranch nearby. Still not sure how it got loose. There was a car completely covered in googly eyes. Hundreds of them. The wheels, the doors, the windshield wipers, all blinking in unison as it hit potholes. It passed me doing 85 like it had somewhere important to be, and I still think about where it was going and what the other drivers must have thought. While driving home from a wedding, I saw a man on the overpass dressed as a banana, holding a "You're doing great" sign. It was 2 a.m. I nearly crashed laughing. There was no one else around. Just a glowing banana of encouragement under the streetlights. I saw a driverless car once, just cruising down the road with no one in it. I pulled up next to it and realized the driver was lying fully horizontal across the seats, steering with their feet while holding a phone above their head. It was the most dangerous yoga pose I've ever seen. A man in his 60s picked me up when I was stuck outside a small town. He had a quiet car with classical music playing. We didn't talk much until he pulled out a photo of a dog and said he used to ride shotgun. Then he smiled and told me to stay off the highway after dark. He didn't explain why. He just turned up the music. I once picked up a woman who told me, flat out, that she didn't know where she was going. Wherever the wind, she said. She had no bag, no ID, and was wearing a coat 5 sizes too big. We drove in silence for 30 minutes. Then she pointed at a gas station and said, "Here." She got out, bowed, and walked into the woods behind the station. I never saw her again. I was hitchhiking once and got picked up by a couple in a vintage Volkswagen bus. They offered me trail mix and played 80s synth pop the entire ride. Every time we passed a cow, they'd honk twice and say blessings. When I asked why, they just said, "We're even now." I don't know what that meant, but they dropped me off safely and waved like old friends. One guy I picked up seemed totally normal at first. Then he asked if I liked riddles. I said sure. For the next hour, he told me riddle after riddle, none of which had answers. I'd ask what the answer was, and he'd just smile and say, "There isn't one." It wasn't scary, just extremely weird. I dropped him off at a library. I once hitchhiked during a storm and got picked up by a woman in a red pickup truck. She didn't say a word the entire ride. Not one. Just drove in silence while classical music played softly in the background. When we got to the edge of town, she pointed at the streetlights and said, "That's where it ends." Then she turned around and drove away into the rain. I once watched a guy try to run someone off the road. In a smart car. He was weaving like a shark made of plastic and poor decisions, aggressively trying to box in a lifted truck. The truck eventually pulled over, and the smart car guy got out and started screaming up at him. The truck driver just said, "I'll wait," and dialed the police on speakerphone. There was a woman in a minivan who tried to block someone from passing by, drifting into both lanes. The car behind her finally squeezed around her, so she floored it and followed them for at least 15 minutes. I watched her run a red light just to keep tailing them. No one had touched anyone's car. It all started with a honk. While leaving a grocery store parking lot, I watched two drivers yelling at each other over who had the right of way. One guy grabbed a loaf of bread from his front seat and launched it at the other driver's car. The bread hit the windshield and left a huge smear of flour and crust. It was so absurd, both drivers started laughing. And then just left. It turned wholesome by accident. I was once tailgated so aggressively that when I finally pulled over, the guy followed me into the parking lot and demanded I apologize. I told him I was just trying to avoid a wreck. He actually calmed down, shook my hand, and told me I seemed nice. Then he got in his car, peeled out, and nearly crashed into a light pole on the way out. So much for the peaceful ending. I saw two guys arguing through their car windows in heavy traffic. Suddenly, the driver of one car reached into his passenger seat, pulled out a saxophone, and started playing aggressively while making eye contact. The other guy just stared at him in disbelief. No yelling. Just rage jazz. I was driving in light rain and saw a jogger in the distance. As I got closer, I noticed something was off. His feet weren't touching the ground. He was hovering just an inch above the pavement, arms pumping, face focused. I slowed down in disbelief, but the second I passed him, he was gone. No sound, no splash, just gone. One time, I saw a normal-looking sedan ahead of me. Everything about it was fine until it turned left, and I saw that the license plate just said meat. Nothing else. Just meat. And in the backseat, a giant teddy bear with a butcher's knife taped to its paw. I changed routes after that. While driving through the mountains, I saw what I thought was a regular group of hikers taking a photo. Then I noticed they were all facing the wrong way, backs to the camera, perfectly still. No one was holding the phone. It was just levitating in front of them. I blinked and the whole group had dispersed. I was the only car on the road. I passed a roadside fruit stand and waved at the person in the chair behind it. They didn't wave back. I looked again and realized it wasn't a person. It was a scarecrow, perfectly dressed, posed with one hand resting on the table. The weird part? Its eyes followed me as I drove by. They moved. I'm sure of it. I was once driving behind a car that had a bumper sticker that read "honk if you've seen it." I honked. Just for fun. At the next light, the driver got out, walked up to my window, and whispered, "Then you already know." Then he got back in his car and drove away before the light even turned green. I was once trapped on the freeway during a heat wave. A guy in a Jeep ahead of me pulled out a portable fan and pointed it at his face. Then he reached into a cooler, took out an ice cream sandwich, and made direct eye contact as he slowly ate it while everyone else suffered in the heat. It was either villain energy or hero energy. I still can't decide. I was stuck in a massive jam outside of Las Vegas, bumper to bumper in 100-degree heat. Suddenly, a guy in a truck stepped out, opened the bed, and pulled out an inflatable kiddie pool. He filled it with water bottles from a cooler and sat in it, waving at everyone. The police actually pulled up, and waved back. There was a time I was trapped on a bridge for over an hour with nowhere to turn. A couple in the car ahead of me got out and started arguing, loudly. Then they switched to singing. Full-blown musical argument. He sang, "I told you to take the other exit," and she belted back, "You never listened to me." It was incredible. I was once in a jam where a woman in a convertible stood up, pulled out a bubble machine, and let it run full blast. Dozens of bubbles floated between the cars. Kids in the backseats nearby started cheering and trying to pop them. It didn't solve the traffic, but it made everyone smile. I was stuck near a theme park during rush hour when a mime appeared out of nowhere, walking down the row of cars. He performed a dramatic invisible wall routine for every vehicle he passed. No one knew where he came from. No car, no backpack, just mime energy and commitment. Then he vanished between two RVs.